Howdy, howdy, boys and girls. How's everyone doing? Just give it a couple of minutes, see if any stragglers can join.
Hello, everyone. We've got 15 here with us so far.
Yeah, normally by about 5 past, we normally have the majority of people join in. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes, see if anyone's making a coffee or anything.
Connie, welcome to Vemanti.
Thank you, Jared. Great to be here with all of you. I'm excited for my first live chat with you all.
You've kind of thrown Connie in at the deep end. So as she's joined, it's in the midst of all these various partnership discussions. But I just want to tell everyone that Connie's done a fantastic job of getting ramped up and building out the PR roadmap and everything. So I'm really looking forward to the next few months, to be honest.
Warren, you've been great as well as a community here. I mean, I love the passion, I love the energy. It's really great to be here.
We've been sharing some of our favorite gifts from the community that people have been posting on Twitter. I think the most recent one is the Warren one. I think that's one of my new favorites. Righty. All right, I'll give you guys a quick brief update of where we're at. As you guys are aware, Franklin Noll and Andre joined recently as advisors. What they're bringing to the team is essentially a new, well-rounded aspect. You know, an experience base that's mostly focused in, you know, traditional finance systems, monetary ecosystems, and that's exactly what we need as we're building out. You know, not just the DeFi ecosystem, but the payments ecosystem, the lending ecosystem. So all of these things are going to be working together. We've also, I'm not too sure if they've signed, but we have a new technical advisor. Yeah. It's all right. So we've recently just joined. I don't know if we've signed the contracts yet, but we have a technical advisor joining shortly who's going to handle a lot of the DeFi management as we scale up this ecosystem. So as you guys are aware, we saw the Benzinger interview. We're pushing the PR out now. We have some developments with some different payment partners, some remittance partners. We're going through some due diligence process now, like the final steps of some of them. We're onboarding some more. We've already registered with some exchanges, but what they're looking for is different things like you know, X amount of wallet addresses, X amount of transactional volume before they make any, you know, large scale PR announcements. But everything's really in the works. Some of you guys did notice the smart contract address. You know, I have to give it to the Sherlock in the group. We can't hide anything from you guys, so this is why we've always been transparent from day one. We may be reissuing the new smart contract, mostly for the branding aspect. Nothing technically, you know, we've proven the use case with a lot of the affiliate and tracking features within the minting and redemption process. We're getting that a bit more streamlined for institutional partners before we bring them in. But we've done a couple of low cap test transactions with internal wallets, Ledger Vault and Fireblocks being two of the kind of leading internal ledger systems that we're looking at. So this means that people within the Vemanti ecosystem can send payments gas free, which is very important, you know, when you're working with ERC20s, for example. But as we've said, you know, we are looking at various different partners, Stellar, Binance Smart Chain and stuff. We're looking at various different technologies that we can deploy on. Stellar has a fantastic global network, as I mentioned in the past, which allows us to scale very, very quickly. But the ability to send cryptocurrency payments gas-free is obviously one of the biggest indicators. I'm sure some of you guys were aware when, you know, at the peak of the bull market, sending $10 with Ethereum was costing like $33 or something crazy. So it just didn't really, it's not really an applicable use case of the technology. So hopefully with these ledger vaults and Fireblocks, we can get these, zero gas fee payments down. So Franklin Noll's actually redesigning the white paper to offer more of a fleshed out academic aspect to it. What we're going to do is we're going to repurpose the old white paper as various different articles, establish these as brand leadership, content and the like. But we should be releasing a very light version of the document alongside the payment platform. The website was, the website's finished for a start for signups and stuff. We have the deployments. We have the deployments ready. I think there's just an issue with the cPanel admin login. Like we're just trying to give them access now, really, so they can deploy. So I was told that was going to be just before the weekend. So I'm assuming it could be, today or tomorrow, literally any minute now. And then we'll post that in the group when it's available. And as for the payments platform, everything's perfect. Everything works. Signups work. We're just making some finishing touches to the UI, just making sure everything's consistent with the Vemanti branding, like the text size and, kind of very minor things. As you guys are aware, my mantra has always been, get the technology working. Everything has to work. It has to work from day one. And that's essentially what we've delivered. So there's no concerns in anything moving forward. Everything's going perfectly. And I'm sure you guys are paying attention to the news. We couldn't be, at a more perfect time to offer a regulated alternative to a lot of the cryptocurrencies out there. So a lot of the exchanges that we're speaking to, they are ecstatic at the fact that we're a US regulated entity. If you look at Binance.com and Binance.us and now shortly Binance.co.uk, we're able to list on all of those platforms. So if the hammer comes down on USDT and USDC and the likes, we are situated perfectly to swoop in, fill in that void very efficiently, very quickly, and also being an ERC20, which is part of the plan, is we're able to fit into a lot of these existing infrastructures already. So timing honestly could not be perfect. We're literally going to ride this wave to mass scale adoption. And obviously being based in the US with the world's most strict regulation, and then working with partners across Southeast Asia, branching out into Latin America, parts of Europe and Africa. We honestly feel that, mass adoption is relatively easy compared to a lot of these other projects. If you look at USDT, the only reason they have massive adoption is because they were the first. And they also are not backed by anything. I mean, 2.9% cash reserve, that's just a problem waiting to happen. So the ability for them to print money essentially from thin air, give it to these exchanges, give 10, 15 million to these exchanges that then sold it to the retail investors. It's a very shady practice, but it also allowed the crypto community to flourish. It did fill a need at the time. We're talking 2016 or earlier. So to give them credit where credit's due, it definitely paved the way. But now, as the technology is maturing and adoption is growing, we do need regulation. People shouldn't be afraid of a centralized system. Imagine if you lost your PIN code to your phone and then you lost your life savings. It doesn't make sense for every single product. But hopefully the technical advisor that joins will be building out the DeFi ecosystem. So they're going to be helping us build out, various different ecosystem tools and financial instruments that can run on either a DAO, like a decentralized autonomous organization, or a fully decentralized lending product that uses, collateralized or uncollateralized assets. So there's various cool things that we'll be announcing as we move forward. This is the beauty of being regulated and working with cryptocurrency. One of the challenges is that no one else has done this before. So, we have to listen to the lawyers and the regulators and listen to how we can basically work with them. Again, something I've always said since the beginning is, we don't compete, we complement. So what we're looking to do is essentially fill the void of these unregulated platforms, tools, financial instruments, etc., and offer a more safe alternative to users, because that's what we care about. That's why we're doing this at the end of the day. So I'll just jump on. Connie's managed to gather some questions. If there is anything that I've missed, please, guys, feel free to just comment in the Telegram group and tag me, just in case I've missed any questions. Okay, someone's posted, have the staking terms been determined yet? E.g., 30-day stake yields 2.5%, 180-day stake, blah, blah, blah. What duration will yield the greatest return at launch? So the way we're envisioning it right now is obviously long-term staking is the best option. You know, most of the interest is calculated as APY. So long-term is obviously going to be a lot better than short-term because there's less flexibility. You know, we can deploy it to more long-term gains. So obviously there is more yield to be earned from a 12-month stake versus a 30-day stake. However, if someone's just looking to buy something small, you know, or maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck and they just want a little extra boost, you know, they can certainly store it in a 30-day and get a pretty reasonable return, more than a high street bank, for example. It's, you know, much less confusing than a lot of these yield farming or DGen-fi platforms, but it's also easier to cash out because you're essentially earning the same asset. You know, if you look at different platforms like Celsius, for example, you know, they do offer sell token, but they also offer you the benefit of earning interest in the native asset that you've collateralized essentially. So what we're hoping to do is, you know, kind of combine everything into one service. The actual rates of the interest are market rate, so we can't determine them until we deploy at a later date. But that's going to be fluctuating, you know, most of the time. So for example, if you stake in the earlier in the year, you know, you might have, you know, 0.3 or 10 bits less than if you stake later on in the year, for example. But one thing we've learned from, you know, this pandemic is that, you know, cash flow is king. So there's a lot of people out there that are, you know, pretty desperate for cash flow. So there's always a need for a collateralized loan. Do international stakers need to convert to USD before staking? Is there a currency converter on the platform to exchange euros for USD, for example? This is a great question. So yes, when there is a wire transfer sent to a trust company, for example, then normally the conversion happens on the other side. If you guys can get a better rate by sending USD, that's also an option. But the main matter is right now, the main account is USD. But as we build out these fiat-backed assets, you know, people are going to be able to send yen, renminbi, you know, Vietnamese dong, you know, euros, GBP, etc., etc. So we are going to build out that fiat basket it's a bit posh, fiat basket to essentially support a lot of these different global currencies. So the payments platform, we can actually support 150 different currencies. But yes, most of them will be converted into USD once they hit the main account. But, you know, there's always the option of using a cryptocurrency. You know, normally the big five, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., etc. So there's always the option to, you know, convert the cryptocurrency asset into USDV through the platform. Will USDV be offered on platforms like AAVE and Compound alongside other stablecoins for staking? Yes, so we've already spoken to several DeFi staking partners. The reason that they're very interested is that we're definitely more regulated than a lot of these assets, but also that we pull interest from traditional capital markets. You know, there's a lot of projects out there that say, oh, we're bridging DeFi with CeFi. You know, we're offering traditional finance within a DeFi setting, but none of them actually, as far as I can tell anyway, none of them actually have anything solid. Most of it just seems to be a decentralized platform with a centralized governance. So to me, you know, it's kind of twisting words. However, we have, you know, a decentralized ecosystem. Some parts are centralized for security, yes, you know, also for regulation purposes. But the ability to pull the interest from a traditional finance market that was, you know, historically only available to, you know, the 1%, you know, for example. So rather than one guy going in with $1 million, we have 1 million people coming in with $1. And we're essentially offering the exact same service. So we truly believe that we are one of the first, if not the first, company that is, you know, offering a real bridge between traditional finance, centralized finance, and DeFi. Do you expect a significant amount of capital to migrate from USDC, USDT to USDV based on its key differentiators? So if you look at the main purpose of USDT, USDT was filling a void between people trading. So the exchanges love them because, Bitfinex, Deltec Trust or Deltec Bank in the Bahamas, they were essentially just printing money. They will go into these exchanges and saying, hey, we'll give you 10 million USDT if you, support us, push us. We'll give you an extra 2 million to airdrop to users. I mean, Binance, they've always done like 150 USDT referral fee, etc. in the beginning. So USDT was there to fill a void. Most people are bringing into question its practices, the backing, the actual, what kind of backed asset it is. I mean, 2.9% on like a X billion, maybe possibly trillion for all we know. It's just not feasible long term. I mean, you can see that the minting for USDT, once the SEC report or once the SEC investigation began, USDT started printing in uniform blocks. So if you look at USDC, their minting is normally from a group of individuals that want to mint USDC. Say, for example, they're doing like 143,816, and $23. That's how minting should normally be. USDT, we're just printing 10 million, 14 million, 2 million, 4 million, like very uniform blocks, which is, quite suspicious. It's not normally how, it's not normally how a minting procedure is done. So that's definitely a very shady practice. With USDC, that was supposed to be a more transparent alternative to the stablecoin. I mean, now we have, a Korean won stablecoin, Canadian dollar stablecoin, the gold-backed stablecoin. There's so many out there that don't really serve a purpose. The main thing that we're offering to people is perpetual yield, and that's only been possible with a lot of these advancements in decentralized finance. I mean, back in 2019, DeFi and yield and perpetual vaults and all these kind of keywords, these were all brand new. One of the good things about this most recent craze with DeGenFi is it's allowed us to see a lot of these tools and the demands from the market and what people are interested in. So that's one reason why we think the perpetual yield feature is, a huge bonus over a lot of these other stable coins. So do we expect a significant amount? I mean, only the market can tell, right? But the key indicators from us is that we offer a significantly better product that's more transparent, more regulated, more, there's more long-term gains for using USDV than there are for using any of the other stablecoins. Is it correct that USDV is anti-inflationary because the collateralized loans that underpin the coin have variable interest rates that adjust up to mitigate inflation? That's correct. So normally, if you hold US dollar, when they print US dollar, the value goes down. I mean, I think I actually posted a inflation heat map last week. I mean, used cars are going up 45%. So the depreciative asset is now the appreciative asset. Who would have thought? But normally holding a fiat currency, is inflationary. So, your value goes down, right? I mean, you guys know all this stuff. The fact that we actually generate interest on the assets that underback, using various financial instruments and tools, that does make the asset anti-inflationary. Stated the website and when it will be launched to the public. Any day now. We're just waiting for the web designers to basically just publish. We've made a lot of the last minute UI changes. There was a couple of bug fixes and stuff. Very minor graphical bug fixes, like the animations and stuff like that. So literally any day now. We're just waiting on the web designer. Is it possible for USDV to be in a position for a government entity to buy out? I'm not too sure. Do governments regularly buy private assets? That's probably a question for the lawyer, to be honest. I'm not too sure if that's, I'm not really sure about that. Based on feedback, how many relative businesses, banks, entities are aware of USDV? How many relative businesses? Like relative as in ones that are applicable to USDV? Well, we've been speaking to, dozens, hundreds of different various partners, and most, I'd probably say 99% of who we speak to are extremely interested. There's a couple of, for example, there is a bank in South Asia, I want to say South Asia, that we've been speaking to create a safe, reliable payments platform, payments channel between freelancers in the US and freelancers in India, Bangladesh, etc. And they're interested because of the region that they are located in. That there's heavy capital constraints. The government is aware of this, but that they also want foreign investment. So if you look at Bangladesh, for example, the Bangladeshi taka cannot leave the country. Similar situation to Vietnamese dong. However, with a basic on-ramp, you can have Vietnamese dong, you can purchase, a different asset, you can send that asset cross-border, and then, you're not breaking any laws, essentially. The government's aware of this, as long as you're not using it for anything nefarious. Obviously we have lots of AML and KYC policies that we have to abide by. So we're not breaking any laws. Everyone's happy that we're a regulated entity. So there's a lot of people out there really that are interested in adopting USDV because we're a safer option. We also offer a lot of their users perpetual yield from a traditionally safe format. This isn't an interest rate that's built on air. This isn't a shitcoin as you guys often hear me refer to. This is, a traditional financial instrument. We're talking about the ways that these hedge funds and these big players earn, a guaranteed income essentially from a lot of their assets. We're just offering the same service to retail users. I think that's it. Let me see if there's anything in the Telegram group.
We have 2 more in the Telegram group.
Gotcha. Can you expand on the mean by before you bring in the issue in what you want to involve? So what I mean by the institutional players are essentially big firms that want to use USDV for deploying various assets. Maybe they want to move funds. If you look at international conglomerates, right? Take a shipping company. A shipping company usually has a port in Hong Kong, they'll have a port in Singapore, they'll have a port in Africa, or a port in Europe. They need to deploy different finances to those various entities. However, each one of those payments need to be tax declared. They have to make sure they're compliant to different capital constraints in each one of those countries. They need a regulated entity partner in each one of those countries. Then they need a HR member on the other side to make sure that the payments reach the individual, that's receiving the salary, or maybe there's an issue that they need custom, they need to pull from a different financial reserve, then they need to top up that reserve, yada, yada, So before we kind of reach out to these large players, we need to expand on the ground with more basic. So one of the merchants that we're testing with, they have a team in Vietnam, they're based in the US. They want to send payments to pay salaries, in a very compliant manner that's easily recordable. So sending 100 different bank transfers, if everyone has the Vemanti, platform account, then we can essentially just deploy, with a click of a button. And then the CEO right down to the HR rep, everyone has a chain of command that they can see the transactions have been sent to the individual. I mean, people are saying you can do that with a bank account, but again, how do you make sure that everything is collated? And then you have to file through all the paperwork and double check with the bank. And, maybe there's an issue with the bank account. What we're actually doing is putting the onus on the individual to the payer. So it's much easier. It's a much easier process than sending 100 different bank accounts. Can you visit again how you plan to allow users to not be impacted by Ethereum gas fees? Is that the Vemanti will retain that cost? No, we don't retain the cost because the individual sending the asset, they're the one that takes on the payment. So if someone wants to withdraw from the USDV ecosystem, then, of course they pay the gas fee. That's just, kind of one of the onuses of blockchain tech. However, working with Ledger Vault or Fireblocks, we're able to have one large internal wallet. So the only gas fee should be when someone wants to send out of the ecosystem. This is, the way that we have to remove the gas fee, to remove the gas fee problem, I should say. That way, if someone's sending from Bangladesh to the US, or, from agriculture in South America to the US, or vice versa, they're not being held by, these $30 gas fees. They don't have to be waiting. No one should have to wait to send money, right? So if they're stuck waiting, oh, maybe the gas fee will go down next week, That's a problem for the individual that we don't want to give them the possibility for that to occur. So working with Fireblocks or Ledger Vault, everyone's onboarded onto one big internal ledger. The funds are basically sent, and then they're transferred to the individual. The only time that you have to pay the gas fee is when you want to withdraw from the USDV ecosystem. I'm not too sure. Big US bank partner. That sounds more like a Vemanti operations question. I'm not too sure I can say anything on that, to be honest. I don't even know if I know what you're talking about. Is the acquisition of platform with 20 mil? Oh, Bama, get in. Report this guy. See you later, Merkel. Is the acquisition of platform with 20 mil rev and 2 mil users still moving forward? I can't unfortunately say anything on that at the moment. That isn't USDV related. The best thing I can do is say pay attention to the headlines. That would be, as soon as it's public information, we can discuss it. But anything that's not public information right now, unfortunately, I could get in very, very big trouble. So I can't mention anything right now. Can you go into Frank and Connie's role moving forward? Sure. I mean, I think Connie can answer. I think we did briefly discuss about Frank Noll's discussion topics, really. So he's coming in more of an academic aspect. And there's also some very strong connections he has within the kind of, US Treasury, and his network of experience is just, phenomenal. So as we move into a digital money, someone like Franklin Noll is essential. And we're just very lucky that he found the benefit and the mission statement from us to be, a worthwhile team to join. But yeah, Connie, I'll let you just have the floor for a few minutes.
Warren, so those of you who are just joining, I'm very excited to be a part of this team and this community. I am the Director of Corporate Communications, and so I'll be managing all the communications on social media and with press and with institutional investors. I'll be working very closely alongside with Warren and Tan, obviously, and really just getting the message out to the investors, as well as people like you who believe in this this vision and really see the possibility of potentially changing and improving the lives of millions of people around the world, especially the ones that have been forgotten for so long by the institutional banks. So very, very honored to be here. Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thanks, Connie. Yeah, so to touch on the last part of the question, how are you attracting big money? Yeah, essentially, I mean, we're speaking to various partners and institutes that are extremely interested in joining us on this mission, because it is a worthwhile cause, as Connie mentioned. Obviously, every business has to make a profit, which we're expecting, to solve $1 trillion problem. There is a huge amount of monetization that we can benefit from this, but we also want to deploy a product that solves a lot of the issues out there. For me personally, it's all about making sure the product works. It's about making sure that the solution is delivered straight to the hand of the people. It's very accessible. There's a lot of distribution partners that can come on board. And fortunately, there's a lot of institutional players that see the benefit of building out an ecosystem and being a part of that. I mean, for a VC firm to send $10 million from Japan to Vietnam, it's extremely difficult. There's a lot of DD and KYC. Sometimes the KYC partner comes back and says, we can't prove that one of the shareholders is actually from South Korea. And, it just makes everything a lot more tied up. So having very clean, very trustworthy payments channels, from $10 to $10 million is a very worthwhile investment for a lot of the institutional players. But also, we're going to be announcing a lot more products in the future that institutional players can come on board with. We're going to be launching various different DeFi products and tools with the help of the technical advisor that will be joining shortly. So yeah, I mean, it's just like any other business, but it's transparent business, it's honest business. And I think, in this whole kind of woke culture aspect that's kind of shaping the world now, people are starting to look at the social impact of what businesses are doing. No longer is it about Jeff Bezos and how rich and how profitable can a company be. You know, there has to be a good, worthwhile course alongside the business-minded individuals, I should say, within a business. Oh, there's a question for Connie there. Is there anything you can share with us about the PR marketing?
Yes. Great question, Diego. Yes, we're currently working on building out the 12-month PR plans. We're working with Benzango, as most of you know. They've been really great. And we have some content that we're planning for the month for August that's coming up. And we're also in the works of starting our Reddit subreddit. So that's something we're excited to launch and have you guys also have a conversation there. Reddit also has a really great community, very active, so keep an eye out for that.
We're also working with a Binance Academy writer as well, because there's a lot of educational aspects. You know, obviously the cryptocurrency, people need to learn more about regulation, and then the regulated partners need to learn more about cryptocurrency. So there is a lot of education that we need to deploy alongside the products as well. But we have some fantastic content lined up. We have more interviews, and we're working with various different media partners, as Connie said. So yeah, I mean, we can't really share any non-tech information at this stage, but we can definitely share more. We can definitely share more about the content once it's released. Yes, so right now the product is web browser only. You can save the web platform on your mobile as like a web page. The main reason for this being is rather than deploy a native app on iOS and Android, I mean, there's thousands of different phone hardware and like network hardware and iOS and operating system conflicts, right? There's various different combinations. Like, you know, you can have a Samsung that runs MIUI OS, or you can have, you know, a Huawei that operates an Android OS, and some people have even put Android on an iOS, right? You know, it's very common, but you know, these are the kind of thousands of different combinations we're working with. So having a web platform-based product is the most secure way, because obviously that's one of the biggest indicators for us. So it is available on mobile devices through a web browser. We're also, I mean, we're currently building the native app, but that's going to take a bit of time. But we've found a few, I don't want to say shortcuts. We found a few methods, I should say, that allow us to deploy. Like, for example, using React Native, you know, we can deploy on iOS and Android much faster, you know, because they're essentially building one system that works on both. The main problem that comes with the native mobile app is the testing phase. The testing stage needs to be, you know, several months, because we need to put hundreds of hours into testing. So that's the biggest challenge that we face with the native mobile app. But we found a few methods that we can speed this up a lot. There's a Dutch team that we've been speaking to that believe they can port it from the web browser to the native mobile app much faster with a limited testing phase. So it's essentially a native mobile app, but it all runs through our cloud, essentially, all one centralized cloud server, which is, you know, a good system of what we're looking for. So that's really the update on the native mobile app. Are you planning to partner with big e-commerce marketplaces as a payment method? So, I mean, you guys are aware of the issue that Stripe had several years ago. They did accept Bitcoin, then they didn't. You know, you look at PayPal and Revolut and stuff, you know, they allow you to buy cryptocurrency, but you cannot withdraw from their ecosystem. I believe that was more like a regulatory issue. They didn't want people to buy the cryptocurrency and then withdraw it, because then it becomes a different kind of transaction. So we've spoken to a few. Well, we've spoken to like one or two, I should say. They're very interested in working with a regulated stablecoin. You know, this makes payments much faster and easy between different countries. We also spoke to a freelancer website, not one of the big four, normally like just a small one with only a few 100,000 users. But they were very interested in making payments much faster. Also making payments within the platform. You know, obviously a lot of these freelance websites have a problem with people not paying or refusing to be happy with the work and sign off, etc. So we've spoken to some freelance website, but the e-commerce partners, it's not uncommon. One of the benefits of this payment ecosystem is if I go to, so let me give you an example. I think you guys have a store called Macy's, right? I could go into Macy's and I could pay for a sweater. That sweater could then be purchased and the money goes straight to the textile factory in Bangladesh. What that makes Macy's then become is not a store, a retail store. It's like a kind of item facilitator, similar to how Amazon operates, right? So if you look at the tax benefits of Amazon in saying that this retail transaction is not really a retail transaction, it's more of an individual, facilitating the transaction, it becomes extremely attractive to a lot of these large department stores. So that's really the angle that we should really be looking at in terms of how a USDV, a USDV transaction operates. We can't share anything with any institutional partners that we're working with. You really need to pay attention to the news that comes out. One sec. Okay, thoughts on Binance being banned in the UK? I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I actually worked with an entity that supported the Binance.us establishment. And this just shows that cryptocurrency is being taken seriously now by investors. Yeah, cryptocurrency is being taken seriously by the masses and regulators, etc. So having Binance being regulated in more countries is always going to be a good thing. Anything regulatory is always a huge bonus for USDV. Can we get a slide comparing USDT, USDC, and USDV? One that highlights the pros and cons of each. We certainly can. I think that's more of a Connie, question, but we certainly can deploy that more. I think actually there is already a section in the white paper that has the pros and cons of these. Yeah, one of the issues we have is obviously there are language requirements that we have to uphold by in terms of the legal team, but then we also have a lot of the education aspects that we have to explain to people. What is your biggest worry regarding governments getting involved, talking about regulating crypto and potentially the many entities working within the industry? Is there any thought that government overreach regulations could hamper Vemanti strategy? Nope, I am not concerned about that in the slightest. I mean, I think it was Powell, right? Was it Powell who released a statement saying stable coins need to be regulated, etc., etc. But it was like saying they have no use. But that's like saying credit cards have no use. So honestly, I'm not concerned about any. I mean, we've built this to be focused on longevity. So honestly, there's nothing that springs out at me at this stage of anything that we need to pivot or anything. But essentially, with the DeFi ecosystem and with the payments ecosystem and the product ecosystem, there's so many different aspects of it. There might be a product that the lawyer turns around and says this can't go forward. But right now, nothing has been raised as a red flag. So I'm not concerned at all. Is USDV operating on the Vemanti Digital Link? So the Vemanti Digital Link is an SPV that we've set up to kind of facilitate a lot of the transactions, just to keep them separated from an accountant's point of view. So it's just to make everything a lot more easier to understand as we declare a lot of the kind of operations to the SEC. It makes things very streamlined and easy to explain. There's nothing really muddled. There's nothing really like confusing, and we don't have to justify X and then prove Y and et cetera, et cetera. So Vemanti Digital Link is really just an SPV established to make everything more streamlined as we report to the SEC. Can you mention if any LATAM countries? Yeah, so we've spoken to a few partners that are very interested in working with us in Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Chile, I think. Mostly because they are already deployed there. So once we get more established and we can work with them directly, we can deploy in Latin America very, very quickly. We have a cash on and off ramp, which is very important. We have the crypto on and off ramp all built in with the same solution that they offer on their side. So we can essentially once we deploy in one country, very shortly after we can deploy in 2, 3, 4 in the region. Once we expand into more of the region, then we establish the financial channels between various different regions like EMEA, for example. And then what we have is a very wide financial remittance corridor that allows us to make these transactions globally very efficiently. The only thing that we need to, I think the biggest challenge really would be the KYC and AML policy on the ground in those new regions. But that's, we've got that down to a template now, essentially. So it shouldn't really be that much of a challenge. I think we've got a couple of other questions coming in. Thanks for joining, guys, by the way. I really enjoy interacting with you all. It often feels like I'm rambling. So if anyone wants to jump in on the mic to ask a question, feel free.
Hey, Warren.
Hey, bud.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
You.
No worries, bud. I think you might be muted. No worries, bud. Yeah, we are actually looking to branch more into the crypto community space. As Connie said, we're in the process of setting up the subreddit. I've already been posting the interview across the DeFi and crypto communities that I've been a member of for 10 years. This is the first time that I've actually attached myself to a product, merely because there hasn't been one that piqued my interest as much as USDV. Regulation is something that I've been calling for a while. So I'm really excited to kind of put ourselves out there, put ourselves in the spotlight. So we're speaking to a couple of the KOLs. We've got some onboarded in mainland China. The ability for us to operate in mainland China is a big deal, in my opinion. And there's also some KOLs located in North America. We've already identified, one of the tasks is identifying KOLs that are a good match for us, because we don't really want to be shilling. There's nothing really for us to shill. It's just a good quality product that's regulated, and some of the crypto indicators, some of the crypto influencers are not really a fan of regulation because maybe they've said something in the past, or maybe they have personal politics that they don't really agree with. But I'd probably say at least over half of the crypto KOLs that we've started speaking to are really excited. Is USDV only for the unbanked and small medium businesses, or can any individual get a loan on the platform? If you're talking, so in the beginning stages, as I mentioned in the past, we're only working with entities that Vemanti has a stake in. This is essentially to grow those portfolio companies, but also to make sure that we get those debts repaid. Once we create the liability, we need to ensure that the asset is protected. The underlying asset is protected. As we branch out into more, I don't really want to say decentralized. I'm not too sure at this stage, how much of a DAO, how close of a DAO it could be, because security and having the debts repaid is the number one factor. But once the lending platform goes live, any individual can apply from, a $1 loan to a $1 million loan. It just depends on the underlying asset and the reputation of the individual that's applying for the loan. So it's applicable to everyone. Unfortunately, I do have a hard stop in 15 minutes, 16 minutes, or 15 minutes now. But more than happy if you guys want to post questions and tag me in the group, feel free. More than happy to get around to it. Trustees' names can be disclosed. I think they can, but I just need to double check. I think the last time we spoke to lawyers, they were like, just wait for things to be released. So I'd rather not risk anything at this stage. Time frame for white paper. So yeah, Frank is writing a more academic white paper. The first version that we got back didn't explain everything, everything in the manner that we expected. But what we'll do is we'll repurpose it as content to establish more of a brand leadership, thought leadership discussions and that kind of stuff. Connie will probably have more information on those in the next few weeks. But what we're trying to do now is release more information without kind of breaching any rules. I'm not too sure on this CipherTrace travel rule solution. I'll have to do more research into it. What we have right now is essentially a tracking tool that allows users to remain anonymous if they choose, but also to open up more features if they want more. They want more, like to be more KYC and AML compliant. So, a large cap entity sending a trade invoice finance fee is obviously going to want to follow all the regulatory, all the regulatory aspects to make that payment much more easier. We can also track that payment to make sure that there's no foul play going on between an individual and the payments. But it also means that the individual can track those payments, for tax abilities, for reporting effects and that kind of stuff. If an individual wants to remain anonymous, then they're more than happy to essentially hide a lot of that, but they're very limited in the transactions they can do. There's various tools out there that people use, Cyclone, Incognito, for people to remain anonymous. Unfortunately, that's nothing that we could integrate ourselves because we are a fully reporting company. So we need to remain on the friendly side of regulators at all times. But there's various tools out there for people to use different stuff. Name screening vendor. Do you mean the KYC provider? Like the entity operating the KYC? Gotcha. Yeah, so we're working with, I think it was Fund America, I think, or maybe we scrapped Fund America. I'll have to get back to you on that, on the actual names of the entities. I don't really want to get it wrong. But I can tell you that they are very well established, working with Hong Kong entities, North American entities, Singapore entities, and they also have a bunch of experience working with, how do I phrase it? Not unbanked entities, but individuals from Ethiopia, India, some parts of South America, Southeast Asia, etc. That was the main reason why we decided to cooperate with them, because they have experience working with the underbanked and unbanked entities that we're essentially targeting. OFAC screening. So we don't actually work with OFAC countries, but I know what you mean with the KYC process. They are experienced in working with OFAC declarations on individuals. So that's all kind of included with the individual KYC. We actually got quite a good price on the KYC processing, because we're expecting quite a large volume of users to come in a relatively short amount of time. No worries, guys. Really appreciate. I'm really enjoying interacting with all of you. I apologize if sometimes it does feel like I'm rambling a lot more than having a conversation with you all. But I'm always here if you guys want to shoot a question. I always get around to it. And remember, if I don't reply in 24 hours, just tag me. Just keep tagging me, and I will get around to it. I promise. I think something that, I mean, it kind of falls on the same thing as asking a question, but if you let us know what you guys want to hear from us, what you want to see from us, in the group chat, Connie can always make a note of it, and we can let you know what kind of info you guys have, and what you want to know more of, and what you want to see from us.
Hey Warren.
Hey,
So I have a question, real quick. Hi. So one of the interesting questions that I remember from the Bizia interview was that, like, I believe one of the hosts had asked him, what is the greatest accomplishment that you guys have experienced so far? And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, on the other half of that, what has been the more like struggle kind of challenge that you guys have faced that you've overcome, and like what's really been the learning lesson there, like just in terms of like growth, like what are some things you experienced earlier on that now you're more equipped to deal with?
Regulators and lawyers, basically. Making sure lawyers are happy, because the regulators kind of have the final say, right? And the lawyers are just there to help us, to equip us in how to answer regulators' questions, or kind of processes as they kind of probe through the process and make sure that everything's fully legal and compliant. Lawyers, I don't want to say lawyers are not friends, but they're definitely there. If they tell you to do something, it's definitely something that you kind of have to take on. There's no explaining. Kind of a few years ago when I was just kind of getting started in the regulatory space, I was always trying to negotiate with lawyers. If a lawyer says no, you can't do that, I was always like, oh, but it's kind of like this, trying to argue something. And lawyers are just like, no, I'm telling you now, no, that's not how it works. No. So now I think we're much better equipped. So when a lawyer says no, we're much stronger in being able to kind of rebound with an alternative. Because obviously there's been a very short window from when we kind of announced the project to you guys earlier in the year compared to where we are now. We've made huge strides. And one of the things that we want to get right from the beginning is we have everything lined up as we go forward, because we're paving the way here. What we don't want to happen is 100 different clones to come out, doing the same legal processes, the same regulatory processes, the same phrasing, etc., that we've paved the way for, and then the essential opportunity gets saturated. So one of the biggest challenges for us definitely has been working with regulators and keeping lawyers happy. And to answer you something about being much better equipped to handle, it's definitely rebounding or pivoting in a way that keeps regulators and lawyers happy, but still achieves the same mission that we've been going for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I find it, especially in the work that I do, that, whenever you come to like a good like stopping point in your work, it's always good to like reflect on, the positive and the negative. So, well, not necessarily negative, but just the learning experiences that you've gone through.
No, for
yeah,
sure.
I appreciate the.
No worries, but honestly, I always love negative feedback, right? If you go to a conference and you have a product,
you don't
and
always
you
want
say,
negative feedback. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's the gold dust. That's how you improve. It makes, instead of sitting at home and thinking, how can I do better? How can I improve? If someone says this was a bit shit and you can do better on this, that makes my job much easier, because I'm like, okay, great. Now I just know I need to improve in this area, rather than, internally reflecting, how can I do better? How can I reflect, and that kind of stuff. So I honestly always appreciate negative feedback, because it helps you improve much faster.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for your time, Warren.
No worries, but no, thank you for the question. Yes, Stably is a service provider. They've helped us consult with some of the regulatory aspects of stablecoins. They've also got a very strong network that we can tap into. So yeah. No worries, guys. Really, really appreciate you joining. Really appreciate your time. Thank you all. So in regards to the Walmart question, Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for a brand like Walmart to launch, right? Because they have people that always go to Walmart. People always hunt for the best deal. So say, for example, I know I'm going to spend $500 a month on groceries. I could deploy that $500 into a Walmart gift card, and then they could give me a 10% discount on all products. Walmart's, kind of internal, fiat reserve shoots up. The individual user gets a pretty decent discount on products within the store, and everyone's happy. It's a win-win for both parties. So it makes a lot of sense for these Walmart and retail entities to launch a stablecoin. In the past, people have looked at loyalty points. I remember like a year or two ago, there was a couple of companies like gambling, for example. They don't really advertise a fiat amount like a GBP or euro. It's always been like a point, you buy points. And this is where a lot of the free-to-play games kind of navigate a lot of this anti-gambling regulation. People aren't buying stuff, they're buying gems, or they're buying, jewels or coins or whatever. So it makes a lot of sense really for these. There is an aim to target a lot of these. So one of the targets that we have, right, is this is a feature that may come later on. It may not come at all. It really depends on lawyers and regulations. But what I would love to see is when someone stakes for 12 months, they can still spend that stake with a store, right? So if I stake USDV for 12 months, I still earn an anti-inflationary interest rate. I can go to Walmart if I don't have any cash on me. Oh, okay, I'll pay you with staked USDV, right? Then that staked USDV, the smart contract ownership essentially is transferred to Walmart or Walgreens or Bloomingdale's or whatever. So they're essentially still spending the staked asset, but they obviously sacrifice the interest that they've earned on that. So that to me would be a great use case of a staked asset, one that's only applicable with DeFi technology. Yeah, there's huge amounts of monetization, and the regulatory aspect is a key factor. And you guys are seeing from the news now, retail investors are getting sick of these projects that don't have any accountability. There's no transparency. It's all random. It's just complete chaos in my opinion. And it gives blockchain technology a very bad name. One thing that I discussed on my TED talk was blockchain and data security. The Chinese government did not like that one bit. But probably the most controversial thing I said was, with blockchain, your smart fridge is going to be able to order eggs for you. Like, it just really goes to show that how blockchain has evolved from just a few years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 12 months with all this regulatory calling. I mean, even you have influencers such as Mark Cuban, coming out and saying, look, I've lost a few $100 grand on crypto projects, and I think regulation is a good thing. So unfortunately, I have to jump into another call right now, guys. But if anyone's got any quick last-minute questions, more than happy to take some on. Thank you, guys. Honestly, this is on. There's no need to thank me. I really enjoy interacting with you guys and offering updates and stuff. And I'm sorry we've kind of got slack with the calls as the launch grows near. But more than happy to jump on with you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
You guys are legends, putting out GIFs and going crazy and stuff. It really brightens my day when we see some solid content like that.
Gave us a few great laughs for sure.
Alrighty, guys, I'm going to jump off, but I'll see you guys on the next one. Connie, do you want me to leave the group chat on, or should I close it?
We can close. It looks like we're done with questions for now. We can, if there's anything, we can just continue in the Telegram group.
Oh, sure, guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. Any questions you got, just tag me or Connie in the Telegram group, and we'll get around to it. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.